The girl's screams were silent. That's what haunted Janisa Williams the most. For 11 years, the most powerful mafia boss in New York threw millions at doctors who either couldn't help or wouldn't help until a 24-year-old nursing school dropout noticed what they all missed. But here's what made this impossible. One wrong move in Ethan Kim's house, and you disappear. The last maid who got too close to his daughter. Never seen again. Before we continue, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Ethan Kim sat in his third-floor office surrounded by 12 security monitors showing every corner of his compound. 20-foot walls. Armed guards. Cameras that never blinked. He'd built a fortress in the heart of Manhattan's Riverdale neighborhood to protect one person. On screen 7, his daughter sat alone in the sunroom. Saria was 11 now, beautiful like her mother, with long black hair and eyes that carried too much sadness for a child. She pressed her small hands against the bulletproof glass, staring at children playing in the park across the street, a world she could see but never fully touch. Then she did it again, touched her right ear, then her left. A quick wince of pain crossed her face before she hid it. Ethan had seen that gesture 1,000 times, never thought much of it. 11 years of searching. 11 years dragging her from Seoul to Tokyo to Los Angeles, seeing specialists who charged fortunes and delivered nothing. Otolaryngologists at $5,000 an hour. Audiologists who promised breakthroughs that never came. All of them said the same thing in different languages. Mr. Kim, the condition is irreversible. You need to accept this. Accept it. How could he accept that his daughter would live in silence forever? His phone buzzed. Mr. Choi, head of security. New hire arriving tomorrow. Maid position. Background cleared. Ethan replied, make sure she understands the rules. No contact with Saria. Another maid. They never lasted long. Some quit because the silence spooked them. Others because they couldn't handle the armed guards, the surveillance, the unspoken understanding that they worked in a criminal's house. A few had tried to get close to Saria, thinking they could help, thinking kindness would be appreciated. Those ones didn't just quit. They disappeared. The compound operated according to his grief. No music played because what was the point when Saria couldn't hear it? No television noise. No raised voices. No laughter. Just silence, thick and oppressive, settling over everything like dust. On the monitor, Saria stood and walked away from the window, shoulders hunched, steps small and careful. She looked like a prisoner in a gilded cage, which Ethan supposed she was. He looked at the photograph on his desk, the only personal item in the entire office. Jihai smiled out from the silver frame, frozen at 28 years old. Next to her, a younger Ethan, his arm around his wife's shoulders, and between them, wrapped in a pink blanket, Saria at 1 month old. Jihai had died in an ambush 11 years ago. Chen gang, automatic weapons, their car torn apart by bullets. Ethan had held her while she bled out, their newborn screaming in the back seat, his last words to her in Korean, I'll protect our daughter. He hadn't. Saria was deaf, and every specialist in the world told him it was irreversible. And his wife had died for nothing. His hand moved to the photograph, fingers tracing the glass like he could touch her one more time. I'm trying, he whispered in Korean to the ghost in the frame. I'm still trying. But deep down, Ethan Kim was starting to believe that trying wasn't enough, that some things even he couldn't fix, that his daughter would live in silence forever, and it would be his fault, just like everything else. Outside his window, the sun set over the Hudson River, painting the sky in shades of red that looked too much like blood. Inside the fortress, the silence pressed down like a weight that would never lift. And somewhere in that silence, a father drowned a little more each day. The November wind cut through Janisa Williams's jacket as she stood outside the Kim compound gates at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes early, because her grandmother had raised her to believe that on time was late. She was 24 years old, a nursing school dropout with a worn duffel bag containing 3 uniforms, toiletries, her mother's photograph, and buried at the bottom, her old nursing kit. She couldn't bring herself to throw it away, even after failing. Angela Williams had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors at Columbia Presbyterian had given her 6 months last April. It was now late November, 5 months gone. 1 month left. Maybe less. The chemotherapy cost $8,000 monthly that Janessa didn't have. She'd been waitressing at 2 diners, cleaning offices at night, selling everything that wasn't nailed down, and still falling further behind. Her friends had warned her about this job. That Kim place? Girl, that's Mafia. People go in there and don't come out the same. But Janessa didn't have the luxury of being afraid. The pay was triple anything else, $4,500 a month, live-in, meals included. In her world, that was the difference between her mother dying in a hospital bed versus dying on the street. The gate buzzed. A voice crackled through the intercom. State your name and business. Janessa Williams. I'm the new maid. Starting today. The camera swiveled to look at her. After a long moment, the gate began to slide open. Walk straight to the main entrance. Do not deviate from the path. Do not touch anything. She walked through, and the gate closed behind her with finality. The compound stretched before her. Manicured gardens lined the walkway. Cameras perched on every corner, and guards. 4 of them visible, automatic weapons held casually across their chests. Faces hidden behind dark sunglasses even though the sun wasn't up yet. At the main entrance, a man waited. Mid-50s, Korean. Built like he'd spent his life hurting people. A scar ran from his left temple to his jawline, thick and ropey. His eyes were cold, assessing. Janessa Williams? Yes, sir. I'm Mr. Choi, head of security. Come with me. He led her through a side entrance into a bare room with concrete walls and a metal table. Put your bag on the table. Empty your pockets. Mr. Choi searched her bag with practiced efficiency. When he found the nursing kit, he held it up. What's this? Old supplies. From when I was in nursing school. I just never got rid of them. His eyes narrowed. You were a nurse? Nursing student. Dropped out in my final year. Couldn't afford to finish. He stared at her for a long moment. You're here to clean. That's all. Do you understand? Yes, sir. You will stay invisible. You will not speak to Mr. Kim unless he speaks to you first, which he won't. You will not approach his daughter under any circumstances. You will not ask questions. You will not discuss what you see or hear in this house with anyone. Ever. You've signed the NDA. Break it, and the consequences will be severe. I understand. Do you? He leaned closer, and Janessa could smell cigarettes and something metallic on his breath. The last maid who got too friendly with Mr. Kim's daughter, she thought she was helping, thought she could be kind. We found out she was selling information to a rival organization. She's not selling anything anymore. The implication hung in the air like smoke. I'm just here to work, sir. I need the money, that's all. Mr. Choi studied her face like he was reading a map to her soul. Your mother's at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. Room 847. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 5 months into a 6-month prognosis. You're $27,000 behind on her medical bills. Janessa's blood turned to ice. They knew everything. We take security seriously here. Remember that. He stepped back. Follow me. He led her through hallways that smelled of lemon polish and fear. Armed guards stood at intervals, watching her pass with faces carved from stone. Cameras blinked from corners. The whole house felt like it was holding its breath. And then she saw her. Through an open doorway, a little girl sat alone in a sunlit room that should have felt warm, but somehow didn't. She couldn't have been more than 11, with long black hair and delicate features, wearing an expensive dress that looked like it had never been played in. Toys surrounded her, designer dolls, elaborate puzzles, stuffed animals that cost more than Janessa's monthly rent. But the girl wasn't playing with any of them. She just sat there, small hands pressed against a window that must have been bulletproof based on its thickness. Staring out at gardens she probably wasn't allowed to walk in alone. Then the girl turned her head slightly, and Janessa saw it. The way she touched her right ear, quick and furtive, like checking a wound. Then her left ear, the way her small face tightened with pain that she clearly wasn't allowed to show. Janessa's nursing instincts screamed. She'd seen this before during her pediatric rotation at Columbia. A little boy named Kirk who'd complained of ear pain for months, who everyone thought was just seeking attention, until a nurse practitioner actually looked and found massive cerumen impaction. "Keep moving." Mr. Choi's voice was sharp. Janessa tore her eyes away, but the image burned into her mind. Mr. Choi led her to a small room in the staff quarters. Bare walls, single bed, tiny bathroom. "Your shift starts at 6 a.m. Breakfast is at 5:30 in the staff kitchen. You'll receive your assignments from Mrs. Park, the head housekeeper. Stay in your lane. Do your job. Nothing more." He left without another word, closing the door with a soft click. Janessa sat on the bed, hands shaking. She pulled out her mother's photograph, Angela, smiling at a church picnic 3 years ago. Before the cancer. Before the pain. When life still had room for joy. "Mama's dying, Lord," she whispered into the silence. "I don't know how much longer I can hold on. I don't know how to save her." But even as she prayed, her mind kept drifting back to that little girl, to the pain in her eyes, to the way she touched her ears like they were betraying her. Outside her window, the sun finished rising over the fortress. Inside, a woman who'd failed at everything tried to figure out how to survive in a house where mercy was weakness and kindness could get you killed. 3 days later, the first days passed in silence. Janessa cleaned floors that didn't need cleaning in a house where dust didn't dare settle. She wiped windows that already sparkled, folded linens that had been folded perfectly the day before, and moved through hallways like a ghost afraid of her own shadow. Mrs. Park, the head housekeeper, a severe Korean woman in her 60s who spoke in clipped sentences and expected perfection, assigned her tasks without small talk. The other staff members nodded when they passed but never spoke. Everyone understood the rules in Ethan Kim's house. Stay invisible. Stay quiet. Stay alive. But Janessa couldn't stop watching Surya. The girl existed in her own world within the fortress. She woke at 7, ate breakfast alone in the sunroom while a guard stood outside the door, then spent her days in carefully supervised isolation. A tutor came for 3 hours each morning, a middle-aged woman who communicated through sign language and left as soon as the lessons ended. An occupational therapist visited twice a week. The rest of Surya's days stretched empty and endless. The staff avoided her. Not from cruelty, Janessa could see that in their faces when they looked away. It was fear. Fear of Mr. Choi's warnings. Fear of Ethan Kim's paranoia. Mr. Kim is obsessed with her safety, Mrs. Park had told Janessa during her orientation. 2 kidnapping attempts before she turned 5. He trusts no one. Anyone who gets too close to his daughter, he thinks they're either a spy or planning something. It's better not to engage. So Surya sat alone, played alone, existed alone. But Janessa noticed things others missed. The way Surya touched her ears constantly, not just once or twice, but dozens of times a day. Right ear, left ear, a circuit of checking that never ended. Sometimes her small face would tighten with pain, her eyes squeezing shut for just a moment before she composed herself. Sometimes she'd press both palms against her ears like she was trying to block something out or let something in. Janessa couldn't tell which. And the tears. Silent tears that rolled down her cheeks when she thought no one was looking. When she sat by the bulletproof windows watching children in the park across the street playing games she couldn't join, hearing laughter she couldn't share. On the 8th day, Janessa was dusting the hallway outside the sunroom when she saw Surya struggling with a puzzle. It was one of those expensive 3-dimensional puzzles shaped like a castle, with tiny pieces that needed to fit just right. The girl's frustration was mounting. Janessa could see it in the tension of her small shoulders, the way her hands trembled as she tried to force a piece that wouldn't fit. Every instinct told Janessa to walk away. Mr. Choi's warning echoed in her head. Mrs. Park's stern rules. The knowledge that in this house, kindness could be interpreted as manipulation. But watching that little girl struggle alone, surrounded by wealth and guards and emptiness, Janessa couldn't do it. She couldn't walk away. She set down her duster and knelt beside Saria, careful not to startle her. The girl looked up, eyes wide surprised, cautious, like a deer deciding whether to run. Janessa smiled gently and pointed to the puzzle piece, then to where it actually fit. She guided Saria's hands, showing her the angle, the gentle twist needed to make it slide into place. Click, the piece locked in perfectly, and then something miraculous happened. Saria smiled. Not a big smile, just a tiny upward curve at the corners of her mouth. Barely there, but real. Her eyes met Janessa's, and in them Janessa saw something that broke her heart wide open. Hope. This child was starving. Not for food, but for human connection. For someone to see her as more than a security risk or a tragedy or a problem that couldn't be solved. Janessa smiled back, gave a small wave. Saria's fingers moved in a tentative wave in return. Then Janessa stood and walked away before anyone could see, her heart pounding. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Saria's face. That tiny smile. Those hopeful eyes. At 2 a.m., she got out of bed and folded a paper crane from a piece of scrap paper she'd found in the staff kitchen. Her grandmother had taught her origami when she was little. She made the crane carefully, precisely. Then snuck through the quiet hallways and left it on the chair where Saria always sat. She didn't wait to see if the girl would take it. She just prayed that maybe, somehow, it would mean something. The next morning, the crane was gone. In its place, folded carefully, a drawing on printer paper. 2 stick figures holding hands, one with dark skin colored in brown crayon, one with light skin left white. Stars drawn in the sky above them. And at the bottom, in careful block letters, "Thank you." Janessa pressed the drawing to her chest in her small room and cried. Not sad. Tears of recognition. This child was reaching out across the divide of rules and fear and isolation, saying, "I see you. You saw me." Over the following days, they developed their secret language. Janessa would leave small gifts, candy wrapped in bright paper. A smooth stone from the garden. A tiny origami flower. Saria would leave drawings and return pictures of butterflies, flowers, stars, always including the 2 figures, one dark, one light, always together. Janessa began to learn Saria's personal signs, the ones her tutor probably didn't know because they were hers alone. Hand pressed over heart meant happy. Finger pointing to the sky meant dreaming or wondering. Both hands pressed together, fingers interlaced, meant safe. And slowly, carefully, Saria started using that safe sign around Janessa. When she'd see her cleaning nearby, Saria would catch her eye and make the sign, her face opening with a warmth that made all the risk worthwhile. But the more time Janessa spent watching Saria, the more her nursing instincts screamed. When the light hit them right, she could see dark masses in both of Saria's ears deeper. More pronounced. The pain in the girl's eyes was growing worse. Some mornings, Saria would sit very still, both hands pressed against her ears. Her small body rigid with discomfort she couldn't voice. Janessa had seen this before. During her pediatric clinical rotation at Columbia, there'd been a boy, Kirk, 7 years old, diagnosed as deaf, written off by 3 specialists, until a sharp-eyed nurse practitioner actually looked in his ears with an otoscope and found massive cerumen impaction. One simple procedure, 30 minutes, and the boy heard his mother's voice for the first time in his memory. Could it be that simple? Could every specialist who'd seen Saria have missed something so basic? Or worse, could they have seen it and ignored it? 2 weeks later. Janessa was folding linens in the laundry room when she felt it. That prickle on the back of her neck that meant someone was watching. She turned. Mr. Choi stood in the doorway, his massive frame blocking the exit. He didn't move, just stood there, letting the silence stretch until it became its own kind of threat. "I've been watching the cameras," he said finally, his voice low and measured. "You and the girl." Janice's hands froze mid-fold. Her mind raced through every interaction, every paper crane, every smile exchanged across the sunroom. Mr. Choi stepped into the room and the door swung shut behind him. He moved closer, each step deliberate. His hand moved to rest casually on the gun at his hip. Not threatening. Not yet. Just reminding her it was there. "Mr. Kim has rules," he continued. "Staff doesn't interact with Surya." "Do you know why we have this rule, Miss Williams?" Janice's mouth was too dry to speak. She shook her head. "She's been kidnapped twice. Once when she was 3, once when she was 4. Both times, the kidnappers had inside help. Someone who got close to her, earned her trust, learned her routines. Someone who thought they were being kind." His eyes narrowed. "Every person near that girl is a potential threat. Every smile, every gesture, every act of so-called kindness, Mr. Kim sees it as reconnaissance." "I wasn't trying to," Janessa started, but Mr. Choi cut her off with a look. "I don't care what you were trying to do." His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "The last maid who got close to Surya, she seemed nice too. Brought the girl little gifts, played with her, made her smile. Turned out she was selling information to the Chen gang. Security schedules, medical appointments, windows of vulnerability." He paused, letting that sink in. Mr. Kim found out. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Janissa gripped the edge of the folding table to keep from collapsing. "I'm not." "You're here to clean," Mr. Choi interrupted, stepping so close she could smell cigarettes and gun oil on his clothes. "That's it, that's all. You fold the sheets. You mop the floors. You stay invisible. You do not interact with that girl. You do not smile at her. You do not leave her little origami birds." So they'd seen everything. Every crane, every drawing, every moment she thought had been secret. "If Mr. Kim finds out you've been interfering," Mr. Choi continued, his voice barely above a whisper now, "you won't just lose your job. You'll lose everything." He leaned in. "He's killed for less. Do you understand what that means? Not fired, not arrested, killed. And in his world, you just disappear. No body, no investigation. Your mother would die wondering where you went." The words hit Janessa like a physical blow. "Your mother's in Columbia Presbyterian, right? Room 847. Stage 4. Pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic adenocarcinoma, specifically. Chemo isn't working. Dr. Patel told you last week that you should consider stopping treatment and moving to palliative care. But you can't accept that because she's all you have left." Tears blurred Janessa's vision. They knew everything. "We know about your brother too," Mr. Choi added almost casually. "Malik died at 16 from an asthma attack you couldn't afford to treat. That's why you went to nursing school, isn't it? To save people you couldn't save then." He stepped back. "Stay away from Surya. Do your job. Keep your head down. And maybe you'll keep earning the money your mother needs to die in a hospital bed instead of on the street. That's your choice. But it's the only choice you get." Mr. Choi walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. Mr. Kim loves his daughter more than anything in this world. That love makes him paranoid. Dangerous. He sees threats everywhere because threats are everywhere. Don't become one. Then he was gone. Janessa slid down to the floor, back against the wall, tears streaming down her face. Her whole body trembled. She thought about her mother lying in that hospital bed. Skin gray, body eating itself from the inside out. Angela had maybe weeks left, maybe days, and Janessa needed this job to keep her comfortable. to keep her from dying in pain in some state facility where no one knew her name. She thought about Surya, 11 years old, surrounded by guards and guns and silence, touching her ears in pain that no one acknowledged. She thought about the dark masses she'd seen in both of the girls' ears, when the light hit them just right. Masses that looked exactly like the impacted cerumen blockages she'd learned about in her pediatric rotation. That night, Janessa sat on her narrow bed, staring at her mother's photograph. Angela smiled out from the frame. Taken at a church picnic 3 years ago. Before the cancer. "Mama," Janessa whispered, "I don't know what to do." She pulled out her old nursing textbook from the bottom of her duffel bag. Principles of Pediatric Nursing. 5th edition. She'd kept it because she couldn't bear to throw it away. She flipped to chapter 23, Disorders of the Ear. Found the section on cerumen impaction. Read the symptoms. Hearing loss or deafness, pain or discomfort. Feeling of fullness in the ear. Frequent touching or tugging at the affected ear. Everything matched, every symptom Sarya displayed. She turned the page to treatment protocols. Simple mechanical removal with irrigation or manual extraction. Success rate over 95% when performed correctly. Minimal risk of complications. A 15-minute procedure. That's all it would take. 15 minutes to potentially give that girl her hearing back. But 15 minutes that could also end Janissa's life, if Ethan Kim decided she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She closed the textbook and pressed it against her chest. "Lord," she whispered into the darkness. "I don't know what to do. I can't lose this job. Mama's dying. She needs me. But that little girl..." No answer came. Just the weight of an impossible decision. She lay back on the bed, still clutching her mother's photograph. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "You're not smart enough for medical school, Janissa. You're wasting your time." She'd believed him. When nursing school got hard, when the tuition bills came due, she'd believed him. Dropped out in her final year. Proved him right. But then she remembered something else. A clinical rotation at Mount Sinai. Her second to last semester. An elderly patient, Mrs. Chen, complaining of hearing loss. The attending physician had diagnosed age-related decline and moved on. But Janessa had asked permission to examine Mrs. Chen's ears more closely. Found a massive cerumen impaction. Removed it carefully under her supervisor's guidance. Mrs. Chen had cried when she could suddenly hear her grandson's voice clearly. Her supervisor, Nurse Rita Morrison, had pulled Janessa aside afterward. "You have healing hands, Janessa. Don't forget that. Not everyone has the instinct to look deeper. You do. Healing hands." She remembered her younger brother, Malik. Sweet, funny Malik, with his bright smile and his inhaler that was always running empty because they couldn't afford refills. 16 years old when the asthma attack hit. Janessa had held him as he died. Unable to breathe. And she'd promised herself, promised God, promised Malik's memory that she'd never stand by again while someone suffered if she had the power to help. Never again. But keeping that promise now meant risking everything. She thought about her mother's words 2 years ago when Janessa had come home crying after dropping out. Sometimes God pulls you out of one place to position you for something greater. You can't see it now. But I promise you, He's got a plan. God, Janissa whispered into the darkness. If this is why you brought me here, if this is what you've been preparing me for. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to, because deep in her spirit, beneath the fear and the doubt, and the very real threat of death, something had settled. A knowing, a certainty. This was why she was here. She sat up, pulled out her old nursing kit, and began to sterilize every instrument. Boiled water in the staff kitchen at 2 a.m. Laid the tools on clean gauze. Her hands didn't shake anymore. She'd made her choice. Tomorrow, if Surya collapsed again, if the pain became unbearable again, she would act. She would trust the training she did have, the hands God had given her, and the courage she was praying he'd provide, even if it killed her, because some things were worth dying for. And a child's suffering when you had the power to end it was one of them. The next evening came with the kind of tension that makes the air feel electric. Ethan Kim had left the compound at 4 p.m. in an emergency meeting with his lieutenants about a territory dispute with the Chen gang that had turned violent. He'd taken half the security detail with him, Mr. Ko included. The compound felt different without them, quieter, yes, but also less oppressive. Janessa was cleaning the main hallway on the second floor when she heard it. A heavy thump from upstairs. Third floor. Near Saria's bedroom. Every instinct screamed at her to ignore it, walk away, stay invisible, but her feet were already moving. She dropped the mop and ran toward the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. The remaining guards were posted outside. She'd seen them on her way in. The interior was nearly empty. If she was going to act, this was the moment. She burst through the stairwell door onto the 3rd floor and froze. Saria lay collapsed in the hallway, outside her bedroom, curled into a tight ball, both small hands pressed desperately against her ears. Her face was contorted in an agony so profound it didn't look human. It looked like something breaking from the inside out. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her whole body shaking with silent sobs that made no sound. Saria! Janessa dropped to her knees. The girl's eyes opened red, swollen, drowning in pain so intense Janessa could feel it radiating off her in waves. Janessa could see the blockages now without even tilting Saria's head. They were swollen, dark masses pressing so hard against the ear canal that the skin around her ears looked inflamed. The pressure must be unbearable. This wasn't just discomfort anymore. This was a medical emergency. This was it. The moment, the choice. Janessa pulled out her nursing kit, fingers fumbling with the zipper. Every second felt like an hour. Every breath felt like it might be her last. She signed to Saria with trembling hands. I can help you, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Saria looked at her through tears, and Janessa could see the war happening behind those eyes. Trust had only brought pain. Help had only brought suffering. Every doctor, every specialist, every procedure had been a betrayal. But then, slowly, Saria nodded. Just once. Barely a movement, but enough. Thank you, Janessa whispered, her own tears falling now. Thank you, baby. I won't hurt you. I promise. She pulled on the examination gloves with shaking hands, took out the sterilized tweezers, the pen light. She forced herself to breathe, to be steady. Lord, she whispered, so quiet even she could barely hear it. Guide my hands. Please. Don't let me hurt her. Let me help her. Please. She gently tilted Saria's head, positioning her near the hallway light fixture that cast bright, clear illumination. First ear. Right side. Janessa inserted the tweezers with infinite care. The training came back like muscle memory: angle, depth, pressure. Feel for the mass. Don't force. Guide. She felt it. Dense. Larger than she'd thought. Years of buildup compressed so deep it had essentially become part of Saria's ear canal. Saria whimpered the first sound Janessa had ever heard her make. Not words. Just a small, wounded noise that meant pain and fear. I know, baby. I know. Stay with me. Almost there. Janessa hooked the mask carefully, feeling the resistance. She pulled with steady, gentle pressure. Nothing. She adjusted her angle, tried again. Resistance, resistance. Then suddenly, release. The blockage slid free in one piece, landing in her palm. Dark, wet, massive years of impacted cerumen mixed with debris and dead skin cells. It was the size of a grape. Maybe larger. Before Janessa could process what she was holding, Saria gasped. A real gasp. Audible. Loud. The girl's hand flew to her right ear, her eyes widening to impossible size. Her mouth opened in shock, in wonder. One more, baby. Janessa signed quickly, her hands shaking. The other ear. Stay with me. We're almost done. Second ear. Left side. The one that looked even worse. Janessa took a breath, centered herself, inserted the tweezers. This blockage was deeper, more stubborn, more impacted. She could feel how compressed it was, how it had molded itself to the shape of Saria's ear canal over 11 years. She prayed under her breath words she didn't even know she was saying. Please, God. Please. Guide my hands, don't let me fail her. She hooked the mass, pulled gently. Resistance. She adjusted. Pulled again. More resistance. Her hand was cramping from holding the tweezers so carefully, from maintaining the exact angle, then release. The second blockage came free, even larger than the first. It sat in her palm next to its twin, and Janessa felt something like horror and triumph wash over her in equal measure. Saria's whole body went rigid. Then she sat up suddenly, her movements jerky, uncoordinated. Her head swiveled around the hallway like she'd never seen it before. Like the world had just exploded into existence. She pointed at the antique grandfather clock on the wall, the one that had been ticking her entire life, the one she'd walked past every day without knowing it made sound. Her lips moved, forming shapes she'd never practiced, sounds she'd never made. Tick, tick, tick. The word was rough, unpracticed, barely recognizable, but it was there. Real. Spoken. Janessa's tears fell freely. Yes, baby. Yes. That's the clock. You can hear it. You can hear. Saria's hand moved to her throat, fingers pressing against her vocal cords, feeling the vibrations she'd never felt before. Her eyes were impossibly wide, filled with wonder and terror and joy and confusion all tangled together. She looked at Janessa, really looked at her, and her mouth opened again. Janessa? The voice was rough, unpracticed, the product of vocal cords that had never been used for speech. But it was beautiful. It was the most beautiful sound Janessa had ever heard. I'm here, baby. I'm here. Janessa sobbed, pulling Saria close, holding her tight. You can hear. Oh my God. You can hear. Saria clutched at her, trembling as sounds flooded her world for the first time. The hum of the heating system, the distant sound of traffic from the street blocks away, her own heartbeat pounding in her newly opened ears. Janessa's breathing, the rustle of fabric, everything. She started to cry loud, audible tears, not silent anymore. Real sobs that echoed in the hallway. Everything is so loud, she whispered, wonder making her voice shake. Is it always this loud? Janessa laughed through her tears. Yes, baby. Yes. It's always been this loud. You just couldn't hear it before. Saria pulled back, touched her ears again, then Janessa's face. Your voice. I can hear your voice. It's... She didn't have words. She just kept crying, kept touching her ears like she couldn't believe they were working. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Multiple people running up the stairs. Janessa's heart stopped. She looked up. Ethan Kim stood at the end of the hallway, flanked by 4 armed guards. Mr. Choi was there too, his hand already moving to his weapon. They must have gotten back early, must have seen something on the security feeds. Ethan's face was white as death. His eyes locked on the scene before him. His daughter on the floor, blood on Janessa's gloves, medical instruments scattered around them, dark masses in Janessa's palm. For one eternal moment, the world stopped spinning. Then his voice cold, deadly, filled with a rage that could level buildings, shattered the silence. What the hell did you do to my daughter? Ethan rushed forward, shoving Janessa aside with enough force to send her crashing into the wall. The air left her lungs in a painful whoosh. The blockages fell from her hand, rolling across the marble floor. He grabbed Saria by the shoulders, his hands framing her small face. Are you hurt? Did she hurt you? Talk to me. Saria flinched not from her father's touch, but from the volume. His voice was so loud. Everything was so loud. She'd never heard her father speak before, and he was shouting. And it hurt. But then her eyes filled with tears. Not pain. Joy. Appa, she whispered. Ethan froze. His entire body went rigid, every muscle locking. His hands shook where they held his daughter. What did you say? Appa, I can hear you. Tears streamed down her face. Your voice? Is that your voice? Ethan's legs nearly buckled. His hands trembled as they moved to cup her face. You can hear me? Yes, Saria sobbed, and the sound of her crying, loud, messy, real, seemed to hit him like a physical blow. I can hear everything. The clock. The air. Your breathing. Your heart. I can hear your heart, Appa. For one perfect moment, wonder overtook everything else. Ethan stared at his daughter like he was seeing her for the first time, like the last 11 years had just been erased and rewritten. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Then his eyes shifted to Janisa, still slumped against the wall, and the wonder died. He saw the blood on her gloves, the tweezers, the blockages on the floor, the medical procedure performed without permission, without credentials, without authority. Terror and rage crashed over his face. He stood, pulling a gun from inside his jacket with practiced ease, pointing it directly at Janice's head. His hand didn't shake. The barrel was steady as death. You touched my daughter without permission. You performed a medical procedure without authorization. You could have killed her. Janessa raised her shaking hands, palms out. Mr. Kim, please listen. Guards. His voice was thunder. Now. Mr. Choi and 3 others appeared instantly. Weapons drawn. Faces grim. Take her to the detention room, now. No! Saria screamed. Actually screamed, the sound so loud it seemed to shock even her. She clapped her hands over her ears, wincing. Appa, no! She helped me! She saved me! The sound of his daughter's voice, desperate and clear and loud, stopped Ethan cold. He stared at Saria like she'd just spoken in tongues. But fear was stronger than wonder. Fear of what could have happened. Fear of losing her. Fear that had ruled his life for 11 years. Take her, he ordered quietly. The gun still trained on Janessa's head. Detention room. Full lockdown. No one speaks to her without my permission. The guards grabbed Janessa's arms roughly, hauling her to her feet. She didn't resist. What was the point? She just looked at Saria, tried to smile through her tears. You're going to be okay now, baby. I promise. You're going to be okay. Saria sobbed loud. Desperate. Don't take her. Please. Appa. Please don't hurt her. But they were already dragging Janisa away, her feet barely touching the ground. She caught one last glimpse of Saria reaching for her. Of Ethan holding his daughter back. Of Mr. Choi's cold expression. The detention room door slammed shut behind her. The locks engaged with heavy metallic clicks. Janisa closed her eyes and prayed. Lord, let this be enough. Let her be okay. Let her hearing hold. Even if I don't survive this, please let it be enough. Let my life mean something. Let her hear the world. That's all I ask. The room was windowless, silent except for her ragged breathing. The walls were concrete. The door was steel. She was in the heart of a Mafia boss's fortress, and she just touched his daughter without permission. She might have hours left. She might have minutes. But Saria could hear, and somehow, impossibly, that made it worth it. Janisa sat on the cold metal bench, hands still stained with blood, and waited for whatever came next. Mount Sinai Hospital, 2:17 a.m. The emergency examination room swarmed with activity. Doctors in white coats, nurses with clipboards. An otolaryngologist Ethan had called personally, dragging him from sleep with threats that left no room for refusal. Audiologists setting up testing equipment, everyone moving with the urgency of people who understood that this was Ethan Kim's daughter, and failure was not an option. Saria sat on the examination table, headphones on, responding to audio cues. Her face was a mixture of wonder and overwhelm. Every sound was new. Every test was a revelation. Ethan paced the hallway outside like a caged animal, his guards posted at every entrance. Mr. Choi stood beside him, silent, watching his boss unravel in slow motion. A specialist emerged from the examination room, Dr. Park, late 50s, one of the top otolaryngologists in New York. His face was carefully neutral, but his eyes held something Ethan couldn't quite read. Mr. Kim, tell me. Ethan's voice was rough. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, had barely breathed since putting his daughter in the car and racing here. Your daughter's hearing is remarkable. What does that mean? Dr. Park chose his words carefully. It means whoever removed those impactions did it perfectly. No damage to the ear canal. No trauma to the tympanic membrane. Bilateral cerumen removal, textbook procedure. Better than textbook, actually. I've seen specialists with 20 years of experience do worse. Ethan's mind spun. The maid. She's not a doctor. She's a nursing school dropout. Dr. Park's face darkened. Mr. Kim, I need to show you something. Can we speak privately? They went to a small office down the hall. Dr. Park closed the door, spread files across the desk, medical records, scans, reports dating back years. This is a scan from 7 years ago, New York Presbyterian. He pointed to an image, circled 2 areas with a red marker. These are cerumen impactions. Massive ones. The notation here reads, bilateral impaction noted. Recommend immediate removal procedure. The words hit Ethan like bullets. They saw it? 7 years ago? Dr. Park pulled out another file. Mount Sinai, 4 years ago. Different specialist. Same notation. Impaction confirmed. Removal recommended for hearing restoration. Another file. Johns Hopkins, 2 years ago. Another. Weill Cornell, 8 months ago. The files kept coming. Every specialist, every hospital, every examination over the past 7 years. All of them with the same notation, all of them recommending the same simple procedure. The words blurred in Ethan's vision. His hands started to shake. Why wasn't it removed? Dr. Park hesitated, and in that hesitation, Ethan saw everything. Tell me, now. Your account was flagged for long-term treatment protocol. Dr. Park's voice was quiet. It's a code some specialists use. What kind of code? Dr. Park met his eyes. The kind where patients with unlimited resources are maintained rather than cured. Where the condition is managed indefinitely rather than resolved. Where repeat consultations and ongoing treatment protocols generate more revenue than a one-time solution. The truth crashed over Ethan like ice water. They kept his daughter deaf. On purpose. For profit. Because his desperation was worth millions. Because a mafia boss with unlimited money and nowhere else to turn was the perfect patient, terrified, desperate, willing to pay anything. They'd turned his daughter's suffering into a revenue stream. They knew, Ethan whispered. All these years, all these specialists, they knew and they let her suffer. His hands shook with rage so profound he could taste it. But underneath the rage was something worse. Devastating realization. He'd trusted the wrong people. Thrown millions at specialists with fancy degrees and prestigious hospitals. Threatened them. Begged them. Built his entire strategy around their expertise. And they'd lied to his face for 7 years. While the one person who'd actually helped, who'd actually cared enough to look properly, to act despite having every reason not to, was sitting in his detention room waiting to die. A nursing school dropout with no credentials and nothing to gain had done what every specialist had refused to do. Ethan stood slowly. His whole world was tilting on its axis. "Where are you going?" Dr. Park asked. Ethan didn't answer. He was already moving, back at the compound. 4:43 a.m. Janessa sat alone in the windowless detention room. She wasn't praying for herself anymore. That felt selfish somehow. She prayed for Saria that the healing would hold, that the girl would get to experience sound without pain, that her life would be full of music and laughter. She prayed for her mother that Angela wouldn't suffer too much, that she'd understand why Janessa had made this choice. She'd made peace with dying. Some things were worth it. Some choices mattered more than survival. The door opened. Ethan Kim stood there, but he wasn't the same man who'd threatened her hours ago. His eyes were red, face haggard. The cold mask he always wore completely shattered. He looked like a man whose entire world had just been dismantled and rebuilt in a single night. Janessa Williams. She stood. "Yes, Mr. Kim. Sit, please." The please shocked her more than anything. She sat slowly. Ethan closed the door, stood in front of her for a long moment. Then this powerful, deadly mafia boss, a man who'd built an empire on violence and intimidation, did something no one had ever seen him do. He fell to his knees. "The doctors knew," he said, and his voice cracked. "They saw the blockages 7 years ago. They left them there because my money was too good to cure." Janessa's breath caught. Tears streamed down Ethan's face, real tears from a man who probably hadn't cried since his wife died. "I spent millions. Threatened people. Flew around the world. I trusted specialists and credentials and prestigious hospitals. I believed them when they said nothing could be done." He looked up at her, and Janessa saw something in his eyes she never expected. Brokenness. "And I almost killed the only person who actually helped my daughter." "Mr. Kim, don't. Let me finish." His voice broke. "You're a nursing school dropout. No degree, no credentials. Just a maid trying to pay her mother's medical bills. You had every reason to stay invisible, to protect yourself. I threatened you. My security chief threatened you. You knew what would happen if you acted." He wiped his eyes roughly. "But you saw what they all missed or refused to see. You risked your life because you cared about my daughter. Not for money. Not for favor. Not because you thought I'd reward you. Just because she was suffering and you couldn't stand by and watch." Janessa's own tears fell. I couldn't watch her hurt anymore, sir. I couldn't." Ethan shook his head. "No, that's everything. That's what I'd forgotten. That's what this world took from me." He stood slowly, extended his hand to help her up. "I've killed men for less than what I threatened to do to you tonight. I've built an empire on fear and power. I've spent 11 years believing that's all that mattered: control, strength, dominance." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Your mother's medical bills. I've paid them. All of them. She's being transferred to Memorial Sloan Kettering this morning, best oncology team in the country. Whatever treatment she needs, however long she needs it, it's taken care of." Janessa gasped. "Mr. Kim, I can't." "You can and you will. It's not payment. You can't pay for what you did. It's..." He paused, searching for words. "It's what I should have done from the beginning instead of threatening you. It's the least I can do." He walked to the door, opened it. "You're free to go. Or you can come see Saria. She's been asking for you since we got back from the hospital. Actually asking. With words. With her voice." His own voice broke again. "She keeps saying your name." Janessa stood. "She's really okay?" "She's more than okay. She's..." Ivan couldn't finish. He just gestured for her to follow. They walked through the compound together, Ethan Kim and Janessa Williams, the most unlikely pair. Guards stared in confusion. Staff members pressed themselves against walls. Saria's room was filled with soft sounds. Music playing quietly from a speaker, some pop song. Saria sat on her bed wearing headphones. eyes closed, face transformed by wonder. When she saw them, she pulled off the headphones and ran straight to Janisa, nearly knocking her over with the force of her hug. "You came back." Her voice was rough but joyful, getting stronger with each word. I thought Appa wouldn't let you come back. I thought I'd never see you again." Janessa knelt, held her tight. "Of course I came back, baby. Of course." Surya pulled back, looked at her father. "Appa, did you hear me? I said thank you earlier at the hospital. Did you hear it? Was it right?" Ethan's voice broke. "I heard it, sweetheart. I heard every word. It was perfect." Surya beamed. "Your voice is so much deeper than I imagined, and when you breathe, I can hear it. And your heartbeat." She pressed her small hand to his chest. "It's beating so fast. Why is it beating so fast?" Ethan dropped to his knees, pulled his daughter close. For the first time in 11 years, Sarya heard her father cry. Heard him whisper in Korean words she was only just beginning to understand. "Saranghae, mianhae, jongmal mianhae. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She heard every word, every syllable, every breath between the words. Janessa stood quietly, tears streaming down her face, watching this broken family begin to heal. Ethan looked at her over his daughter's shoulder. "Stay. Work here not as a maid, as Sarya's companion. Help her learn to navigate a world of sound. Full medical benefits, whatever salary you need, whatever you need for your mother. All of it." Janessa smiled through her tears. "I need to take care of my mother, Mr. Kim. Bring her here. She'll have around-the-clock nursing care. The best doctors. A suite on the first floor where you can be with her. You'll both be protected. Both be safe." He stood, still holding Surya. "I've spent my life believing power and money could solve everything. But you had nothing but compassion and courage. And you did what I couldn't do with all my resources. It wasn't just me," Janisa said softly. "God positioned me here for this moment. I almost didn't trust it. Almost walked away." Ethan nodded slowly. "Maybe that's the real miracle. Not just the healing, though that's miracle enough. But that someone cared when they had every reason not to. That someone acted when staying silent would have been safer." Surya reached for both of them, pulling them together into an awkward 3-person embrace. She laughed, a sound she'd never made before, bright and clear and full of joy. "I can hear my own laugh," she said in wonder. "It sounds funny. Is that what I sound like?" "That's what you sound like," Ethan whispered. "That's your voice, sweetheart, your real voice." And in that moment, 3 broken people, a mafia boss, who learned that mercy was stronger than violence, a nursing school dropout who learned that her incomplete training and compassionate heart were exactly what God had been preparing her for, and a girl who'd spent 11 years in silence finally hearing the world became an unlikely family. 6 months later, the Kim compound was a different place. Music played through the hallways, classical in the mornings, pop in the afternoons, whatever Surya wanted to hear. The girl was voracious, devouring sound like she'd been starved for it, which Janisa supposed she had been. Laughter echoed off the marble floors. Sarya's laughter, bright and frequent and alive. Ethan's laughter too, deeper. Rusty from disuse, but getting easier every day. The silence that had defined the fortress for 11 years was gone. In its place, life. Angela Williams lived in a suite on the first floor, receiving treatment from a team of oncologists who'd managed to slow the cancer's progression. She wasn't cured stage 4, pancreatic cancer rarely was, but she was comfortable, pain-free, surrounded by love. She spent her days in the garden with Sarya, teaching her the names of flowers, listening to the girl's endless questions about sounds and words, and the world she was still discovering. Janessa had finally enrolled back in nursing school. Columbia welcomed her with open arms once Ethan made a substantial donation to their scholarship fund. She studied during Saria's school hours. Her textbooks spread across the sunroom table where the girl used to sit in silence. Ethan had changed too. The paranoia was still there, you don't survive in his world without it, but it was different now. Softer. He'd learned that protection didn't have to mean isolation. That love didn't have to look like control. He'd also learned that the people with the fanciest credentials weren't always the ones who could help. Sometimes God sent a nursing school dropout with a paper crane and a pair of tweezers. Sometimes the miracle came from the most unlikely place. On a sunny afternoon in May, Saria sat in the garden with Janessa, listening to birdsong. "What's that one?" she asked, pointing to a robin perched on the garden wall. "That's a robin. They sing in the spring. It's beautiful." Saria closed her eyes, listening. "Everything's beautiful." She turned to Janessa, serious suddenly. "If you hadn't helped me, if you'd been too scared, I'd still be silent, wouldn't I?" Janessa took her hand. "But I wasn't too scared. Or maybe I was. But I did it anyway. Why? Because some things are worth the risk, baby. Some people are worth fighting for. You were worth it." Saria hugged her tight. "I love you, Janessa. I love you too, sweetheart." From his office window, Ethan watched them in the garden. His daughter, the woman who'd saved her. The mother who was still here, still fighting, because someone had been brave enough to risk everything. He thought about Jihai sometimes. Wondered what she'd think of all this. Would she be proud? Would she understand why he'd almost killed the woman who'd done what he couldn't? He liked to think she'd forgive him. Liked to think she was watching. Seeing their daughter laugh and sing and hear the world she'd died trying to give her. "I kept my promise," he whispered to the ghost in the photograph. "Not the way I planned, but I kept it. She's safe. She's happy. She can hear." The photograph didn't answer. But somewhere, in the birdsong and laughter drifting through the open window, Ethan could almost hear his wife's voice saying, "I know. I'm proud. You did good." Outside, Saria squealed with delight as a butterfly landed on her hand. She could hear its wings. She could hear everything. And it all started because a 4-year-old nursing school dropout refused to look away from suffering when she had the power to help. Sometimes God doesn't send the most qualified person for the job. Sometimes he sends the most willing. All it takes is compassion, courage, and a pair of hands willing to be used. The rest is miracle. Before you go, tell me in the comments. Would you have had the courage to do what Janessa did? And hit subscribe, this story found you for a reason.